Hey everybody, you are about to engage in the guidebook unit, The Witch of Blackbird Pond. The purpose of this video is to help you understand a little bit more about the Puritans and the Quakers, two groups of Christians that both traveled from England to the New World, which is what we know today as the United States. We're going to talk about the disagreements and tensions that rose up between the two groups. As we discuss that, you'll better be able to understand our upcoming novel, The Witch of Blackbird Pond. As we work today, make sure you have your handout ready and something to write with for the various questions that will come along. So there were two religious groups, the Puritans and the Quakers. They both helped to set up societies in the New World of America in the 1600s, but they didn't exactly get along. In fact, the Puritans mistreated the Quakers constantly, even going as far as executing them. So, what could cause these two groups to disagree so violently? In the novel, The Witch of Blackbird Pond, you'll meet characters from both groups. Understanding why they disagreed will help you understand some of the conflict between the characters in the book. First, let's start with the Puritans. Who exactly were they? The Puritans were a group of Christians who migrated from England in the early 1600s. They came to what is now Massachusetts in the New World because they were being persecuted or mistreated in England. You see, about 100 years before they left, the King of England had broken away from the religion of Catholicism and formed the new Church of England. The Puritans liked the Church of England, but they wanted to make some changes. The King of England harshly punished people who didn't follow the church exactly. So the Puritans decided to leave England and set up a new colony where they could practice their religion freely and make those changes. What did the Puritans believe then? What was life like for them? The Puritans believed that the Bible should serve as a guide for how to live one's life. They were very strict about implementing rules that they thought the Bible called for. They believed that a good Puritan should be hardworking, reserved, and dutiful, meaning they always did what they needed to do. For instance, there were strict rules about the clothing people could wear. Lace and other fanciness was not allowed, and a lady's sleeves had to be an appropriate length. They also believed that children should be quiet, that they should work hard, that they should obey everything that their parents told them to. The Puritans had a paternal society. That is, that the men were the ones who held the positions of power in government and the church. The women, on the other hand, were expected just to work at home. Finally, the Puritans thought that attaining a good education was very important, especially if you were a boy or a man. They required that each town have a grammar school to teach reading and writing, and they were actually the ones who founded Harvard University. Now, let's look at an excerpt from an article you'll be reading in this unit about the Puritans. As we read, think about the question, what can we learn about the Puritans based on the reading? The quote starts, "The Puritans believed that the simple way was the quicker and better way to God. Ministers wrote and spoke without using complicated words, distracting references to unknown books or quotations in foreign languages. They also favored plain black garments over the fancy, colorful robes of the Catholic Church. They held services in small white chapels instead of in elaborately decorated churches. At this time, we'll pause the video. You may answer any relevant questions. When we are ready to move on, you may click resume." To review, in this excerpt, we see that the Puritans seemed to prefer plain, simple things over fancy ones. For instance, they preferred to write and speak without using complicated words, and they wore plain black garments and worshipped in small white chapels. Now, what about the Quakers, the second group of people? The Quakers, also called the Society of Friends, were another group of Christians, although their beliefs and practices were pretty different from the Puritans. They also left England in the 1600s to set up a colony in the New World where they could practice their religion freely without being persecuted by the authorities in England. In that way, they were alike. William Penn, one of the Quakers who came to the New World, helped set up the colony of Pennsylvania. This is where most, but not all, of the Quakers settled. So, what did the Quakers believe in? The Quakers are known for being a very peaceful, tolerant community. They believed, above all, that people were equal. For this reason, they had good relationships with the Native Americans, whom they traded with and treated fairly. They also believed that the women and men were equal. Women often had roles in their church, which was unusual at the time. The Quakers were also known for having strong anti slavery views, believing that everyone should be able to practice their religion freely, and being strong pacifists, meaning that they were against war and violence. Finally, Quakers were relaxed with how they interpreted the Bible. They believed that nothing should come between a worshiper and God, and therefore their church services often consisted of a congregation sitting silently and searching for the inner light. This doesn't sound too strange, but for the time period, it was considered very strange. People were not being told by a pastor or a priest what to believe in, how to interpret the Bible, or what to do. It was up to the Quakers. Now you're ready to consider some similarities and differences between the Puritans and the Quakers. For example, one similarity that we know of is that both groups migrated from England to the New World to escape persecution of their religion in the 1600s. They wanted to do things differently. One difference, though, is that the Puritans followed the Bible in all aspects of their daily lives very closely, and the Quakers were less strict in how closely they followed the Bible. At this time, you can pause the video and answer any relevant questions. When you are ready, we may continue. To review, another similarity you may have come up with is that both groups practiced a form of Christianity. There are many things you may have written down for their differences. Another example, Quakers allowed women to have jobs in the church, while the Puritans only allowed men. So now you can start seeing, why did these groups clash? Why did they disagree? The Puritans believed that everyone should be a part of their religion. They punished people who did not attend their church or follow their rules. The Quakers, on the other hand, thought that everyone should be able to practice whatever religion he or she wanted. Because of this, Puritans were particularly upset by the way that the Quakers followed the Bible loosely and didn't rely on a minister to lead their sermons and guide their decisions and families. They felt it was necessary to punish the Quakers for this. Puritans punished Quakers severely. They were quick to judge many Quaker women, calling them witches, and even executed four of them. The picture on the left shows Mary Dyer, who began as a Puritan but converted to become a Quaker, walking to her execution in Boston. Now, you are ready to summarize the reasons that the Puritans and the Quakers disagreed. Pause the video and answer the question on your handout. When you are ready, you may click to continue. Why did the Puritans and the Quakers disagree so violently? To review, the Puritans and Quakers disagreed because of their differences. Even though the Quakers were peaceful and tolerant, the Puritans strongly believed that everyone should be a part of their church and follow their rules. They didn't like that Quakers chose not to have a minister to guide them as they worshiped. Understanding these beliefs and differences and rules of the Puritans and Quakers will help you understand the characters and their conflicts in the novel The Witch of Blackbird Pond. By finishing this video, you are one step closer to becoming an expert on Puritans and Quakers.